CBS News Miami.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Najahe Sherman, and welcome to CBS News Miami's 4 p.m. Quickcast. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Off the top, we are tracking storms this afternoon. Some of them have brought heavy rain. Let's get right to next weather meteorologist Cindy Pressler. Cindy, what's the situation right now?
We still have a few showers and storms out there, but really they're starting to shift more from the east coast, moving inland, and then development along the west coast. We always talk about the sea breeze fronts. Well, the flow today is generally off of the Atlantic Ocean, so the tendency is for these storms to move westward instead of eastward today. So we have still, at this hour, a couple of flood advisories, this one in effect for the Sweetwater and Doral area, and I can testify that we had some heavy rain this afternoon. Lowland minor flooding expected. This is going to expire very shortly, and another one to North and Broward County until 5 o'clock. Right across 595 down to Pembroke Pines, the western area has picked up some heavy rain this afternoon as well, and really same spots that had that heavy rain yesterday. Look at this, as much as 1.5 inches, at least estimated. So that's where the heaviest rain was today, west in Fort Lauderdale down to Pembroke Pines. So we're going to look ahead just a little bit the next couple of hours, mainly dry along the east coast, but look how it blossoms for the places like Collier County, Hendry County, Lee County, and again, you might find a spot shower out in the Everglades in the western areas here, and then begins to try to migrate back to the east again by 11 o'clock tonight. So there's just so much juice available, so much deep tropical moisture, so a shower here and there is not out of the question. Temperatures brought down. High today, 93 degrees. That was before the clouds and the rain moved in, and with all that moisture, it felt like it was in the triple digits. We still have a front stalled out. That's going to sag just far enough south to about Lake Okeechobee Wednesday into Thursday. We're on the south side of it, so still that moisture is there. We will have showers and thunderstorms both tomorrow and Thursday. Now by Friday, here comes the front, and a little wave of low pressure is expected to develop out here in the Atlantic right along the front. And what that does is it starts making its way northward, so behind the cold front, a little bit drier and cooler air should move down the peninsula and head right down here to South Florida. Now, it depends on where that low develops, how close it is to the Florida Peninsula. We could actually see severe thunderstorms this weekend, so this is kind of iffy and uncertain right now, but for right now, we're thinking it'll be a little bit drier, especially Saturday, maybe up that chance for rain a little bit by Sunday. But through Saturday, 2 to 4 inches generally is still expected because the air is just so juicy and moist. Rain chances down a little bit, but for the next couple of days, we're going to keep them quite high. Tropics, still nothing threatening South Florida. We've got this wave that's still at 70% chance, likely to be Ophelia by the time we get to the weekend. And there's that area of low pressure. The Hurricane Center is going to watch that. Not going to be a threat to us. That will continue to track to the north. We will have thunderstorms again tomorrow afternoon with temperatures topping out again in the lower 90s, upper 80s, lower 90s with less rainfall, lower rainfall chances by the time we get to the weekend. And that's the way things are going to look.
Cindy, thank you. The Broward School Board is holding a public hearing and voting on a budget. CBS News Miami's Joan Murray gives us the breakdown.
So a little more than a year ago, Broward voters went to the polls and approved a school board referendum for supplemental pay. The school board previously had voted in support of extra pay for teachers and school resource officers. Today at their meeting, they approved supplemental pay increases for non-instructional staff. That would be people like bus drivers and school cafeteria workers and school monitors. For some of them, it means an extra $2,000 a year. The superintendent spoke about this supplemental pay increase.
If we're going to maintain this idea that we're going to be the very best, we're going to move to an A. We know that every group is important, every staff member is important, everyone counts. We need to make sure we're putting our money where our mouth is. So we're going to continue doing this because we will be an A district, and this helps retain our staff and our employees to make sure that they know we respect them.
So according to the referendum, this will be for 4 years, over a period of 4 years each year, and after that, the board would have to go for another referendum to approve this supplemental pay. In Fort Lauderdale, Joan Murray, CBS News, Miami.
Now at 4, the FLA Live Arena in Sunrise has a new name. The Panthers announced that Amarant Bank will have its name on the arena. A news conference is set for this afternoon, and we're going to have the very latest tonight at 5. Miami-Dade County is trying to figure out what to do with the stinky problem. Today, the commission is set to discuss a new site for a solid waste campus. The new site would be at the Opa-locka West Airport. That's off US 27 and Chrome Avenue. But the mayor of Miramar says it's too close to his city and neighbors are upset. Earlier this morning, he stopped by CBS News Miami to discuss the issue.
The tragedy in all of this is that I was not contacted, the city of Miramar was not contacted. This decision and this report was based on studies and sites solely within Miami-Dade County. Ask the residents of Miami Beach, Doral, Miami Gardens, Pinecrest, or even Miami Beach, if this facility was built in their neighborhood, would they accept it?
Right.
If it's not safe enough for those communities, it's definitely not safe enough for our backyard.
We asked the mayor about the possibility of a regional solution for both Miami-Dade and Broward's trash problems. He says he's open to discussion. From the war in Ukraine to climate change, President Biden laid out his foreign policy in front of world leaders this morning. It was at a United Nations General Assembly. CBS News Miami's Michael George reports from the UN, and that's where Ukraine's embattled president is making his first visit since the start of the war.
Well, Naja, no question, the big topic that world leaders are discussing is the war on Ukraine. And today, with the eyes of the world on them, President Biden and Ukrainian President Zelensky called on the world's nations to stand strong and stand up against an increasingly hostile Russia.
Help take on the challenges of their time.
President Biden called out Russia's war with Ukraine as a blatant violation of the UN Charter as he addressed the United Nations General Assembly Tuesday.
If you allow Ukraine to be carved up, is the independence of any nation secure? I'd respectfully suggest the answer is no.
The president also outlined the United States' vision to solve other global challenges, including climate change.
My administration, the United States, has treated this crisis as an existential threat from the moment we took office.
Unusual this year, President Biden is the only leader from the 5 nations with permanent seats on the powerful UN Security Council to address the assembly. The heads of China, Russia, France, and Britain all decided to skip the event this year. Their absence comes as Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky makes his first in-person visit to the global gathering since Russia's invasion began. In an interview on 60 Minutes ahead of his speech, he argued the Russians will invade other countries unless they're defeated in Ukraine.
If the Russians reach Poland, what's next? A third world war?
Zelensky is set to visit the White House and Capitol Hill later this week as Congress weighs Biden's request for an additional $24 billion in aid for Ukraine. Michael George, CBS News, the United Nations. And also on President Biden's agenda as he's here in New York is a meeting with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We're live right now outside the UN in Manhattan. Naja, back to you.
Michael, thank you for that live report. When we come back, cameras in school zones to catch speeders. We'll show you where and why the mayor says this is not a money grab. Welcome back to CBS News Miami's 4 p.m. Quickcast. Now at 4, school zone speeders beware. Some South Florida cities could get speed detection cameras. They would issue tickets and the owner of the car would get a $100 fine. CBS News Miami's Larry Seward explains.
Between Monarch High and Coconut Creek's 6 other school zones, slowing down drivers with cameras.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Excited Luke DeSalle until he heard they'll hit speeders with automated tickets for going 10 miles an hour over speed limits as kids go to school, sit in class, and head home.
Oh, no, I ain't with the fines, man. Nah. I gotta go.
Others, including students.
I think it's an excellent idea because a lot of guys speed runs over here.
See need for intervention.
This is something I feel like we're mandated to do to protect our kids, to educate drivers better to protect our school zones.
Coconut Creek Mayor Josh Rydell's city leaders agreed to buy speed monitors. They're vetting vendors and could use it whenever they decide, thanks to a bipartisan Florida law that, as of July 1st, allows school zone photo enforcement. While their plan won't replace police, it could turn a profit with 60,000 people on this city's main roads. Rydell says that money would only buy crossing guards and valuable lessons for drivers.
The city didn't want to do something that's going to break the bank. We didn't want somebody that's going to get a fine that's going to prevent them from paying their rent or some crucial bill. We're moving forward with something like this to better educate.
In Coconut Creek, Larry Seward, CBS News, Miami.
Now on the Health Watch, Florida is one of the worst states when it comes to allergies, and that's according to the Allergy Foundation. CBS News Miami's Jacqueline Quinn has some helpful tips.
I definitely have allergies. Oh gosh, my eyes start to itch. You know, I get like rashes. I used to get hives.
And when Brian Bodson was younger, he quickly reached for over-the-counter medications to relieve some of his congestion.
Sudafed never really worked for me.
Turns out the FDA now says the main ingredient in drugs like Sudafed and other decongestants, phenylephrine, just doesn't work that well in pill form.
I'm a little surprised, yes.
Renee Waugh, a nurse practitioner with AFC Urgent Care, remembers studying different medications in school nearly a decade ago.
However, there's some decongestions, which we learned it can actually make things worse.
She says it really depends on the illness.
This means that consumers need to look into, other alternatives for what's safe and effective for them.
Waugh recommends consulting with a health professional first. In some cases, patients may need to be prescribed medications, such as albuterol, to relax the airways. And Waugh says there are some natural remedies that can be effective in clearing out stuffy nasal passages, including neti pots, as well as humidifiers, steam therapy, saline nasal sprays, and a warm compress.
They're not saying like everything over the counter doesn't work, right?
Well, any decongestion with phenylephrine, because that's the primary use.
People like Bodson say it is better late than never to make people aware of the medications that actually work.
The Food and Drug Administration's job is to make sure that the public is protected.
In Hallandale Beach, I'm Jacqueline Quinn, CBS News, Miami.
That's your Quickcast. Thanks for joining us.